Hey everyone, welcome to Classical Piano Workshop. My name's Tony Winston. The piece we're going to work on today is from this book, Bach's Short Preludes and Fugues for the Piano. And I picked a fugue in the key of C major. It's number 4 in this book, but I'm sure there's a BWV number that will be up there in the title. And, you know, I did a lot of research on this piece after I learned it. And almost everybody plays the eighth note staccato, and I have chosen to not do it that way. I don't need to emulate a harpsichord. I just like the piano, and I think it sounds good as a legato fugue. The subject is this. All right, it's almost like a Hanon exercise, and that's why I picked it, because I'm always needing to practice my left hand. And I'll tell you more about that later. But I just thought this would be a really good exercise to work out the fingers that I have a little bit of trouble with. And so here's how I learn a fugue now. And I have changed my method about this. I used to just, sight read them and then practice them until I could play them. And then muscle memory would take over. And then I could kind of get through them. Now, with the help of my wonderful teacher, who's got a master's degree from Juilliard, I learn them completely differently. I start with the left hand. I sight read once or twice the whole piece, and then I start with the left hand and memorize it. And that's what I did with this piece. And I started with the subject and memorized that. All right, that's not a hard subject to memorize. It doesn't have much rhythm to it. It's just a little pattern. And then that's what's played while the right hand comes in with the second entrance of the subject. And that's a little harder to memorize because it kind of wanders around, but so far it's just a scale. Not too hard to memorize, and then bang, another subject. All right, same subject. I said another subject. It's the third entrance of the subject. It's a 3-voice fugue. And right here we have another wandering section. And I found that part a little hard to memorize. And there's several sections in this piece that are kind of like that, and they're all a little bit different. So this is the challenging part of the memorization process to me. Melodies like this will stick in your head pretty quickly, and if you can get them in your head, da 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 da. Once you can sing it, you can play it. And it kind of starts another subject again. But that's all there is to it. And then we wander around some more. But this one's a little easier because you start to cycle a fifths thing. G major, C major, F major, all the same pattern there. And then, all right, now this is really the first real time we've had 2 voices at once in the left hand, so it takes a little extra work. Right? And a good way to memorize a spot like this is memorize the fingering. 5, 2, 1, 3. If you memorize stuff like that, pretend like it's a girl's phone number or something. 5, 2, 1. That's the area code, I guess. Oh, that's not right. And then this part right here. That was easy to memorize to me because it just sounds gothic to me. I just love it. So, And really, this is why Bach is still such a favorite today and so loved by all kinds of people. Even if you listen to like Black Sabbath song Crazy Train or something, it's just got that gothic quality to it that just is really a big part of a lot of Bach's pieces. There's a lot more joy in Bach, to tell you the truth. But anyway, I digress. It goes on to this little section, and here I will put a little staccato in. It just helps to separate the two voices there, and this is like when the left hand has got two voices. And I just remember this teacher telling me, this is Bach saying, fuck you, fuck you. And I thought that was so crude. I really did. And here's, now this is an episode. That's, where we kind of modulate through some different keys. But Bach uses a piece of the subject to do this. So he goes da 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 da. Well, that is the subject, just in the key of A minor. And that's most of the subject in the key of C. Yeah, and then. And there is the most of the subject in the key of E minor. This was the hardest part coming up here. And then it was the hardest part for me to play. I don't know, just holding those notes and doing this. And you'll see I've done it twice now with two different fingerings, so it still needs a little bit of work. But then you have this long section now with just 16th notes, and I don't find this kind of stuff hard to memorize. This one, though, gave me fits. I don't know why. And the way I finally got it was just to remember to put my thumb under on E at that critical spot. 1. And then you can handle that part. And that's not as hard as that. It's very similar to the one up here where I was going up. But this one is all on the white keys, so it's a little easier. And then you have the subject again, way down at the bass. Sorry, I'm rushing through this, and I don't want to play it that fast, really. And then the end. Another one of those wandering kind of left hands and harder to memorize. But it starts with an A triad, and then kind of a G triad, and then another G triad, and then we've got a nice close. And I think you could go down to that low G. Probably wasn't available on Bach's keyboard. It's good either way, really. Okay, that's how you should learn a fugue, in my opinion, and is to memorize each hand. And then when you start putting hands together, you use the book a little bit to check and make sure that you're doing the right fingering. And as soon as you're sure of it, then you work on that small section, maybe a measure or two, and just practice it over and over again from memory. That's a critical part of it. I mean, if you really want to have this thing to a performance level, where you could play it confidently, having each hand memorized, practicing small sections so you can start in all kinds of places, so that as you're performing or playing this piece and you keep hitting those starting points, it's like, oh yeah, I can do this. The left hand has the first subject, but the second subject comes in with the right hand. Here it is. Now right there, the fingering 1, switch to 4, then 3, then 1, then 2. When you're playing Bach, clarity is the most important thing above all. The clarity of the voices as they weave in and out, so that somebody listening to it could, pick out a voice and follow that one, or maybe pick out a different one and follow that one just as easily. A lower voice, the upper voice, or even an inner voice. And, it's up to the performer sometimes to bring out the one that they think is the most beautiful or the most important. But all of them should be clear. So I have chosen to play this fugue in a legato style. I'm not going to imitate the harpsichord by playing all the 8th notes or 16th notes staccato. I'm going to do it pretty legato. So I like this fingering, though it took me forever to get muscle memory on it. That little spot right there. Yeah. I still don't think I did it right. Hit it with 1, change to 3. Should end just like that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're working on the right hand now. There's the C. You got to hold that. Okay, and here comes the first. Now we've had 3 entrances. The left hand has already brought in the 3rd entrance of the subject. And now we have our first episode. Episodes are usually modulatory. In other words, they go out of the key that you started in and go through a couple of other keys, and they will usually use a part of the subject. And in this case, it starts off just like the fugue subject, but it holds that. And then it, uses just that very first 4 notes of the subject. A little variety there before it ends. Or it doesn't really end, but it's a cadence, it ends there in the key of G. So, and there's another voice going on at the same time with the right hand. So, and here I'm bringing out the top voice. I'm playing it louder and then softer on this one, loud again on this one, soft here. Now, I suppose you could do it the other way, and I ran that by my teacher the other day. She said, nah, don't do it that way. So occasionally, that inner voice will be more beautiful, or just, it might appeal to you. This music's been around now for 300 years, and everybody, tries to bring something new to it. I don't. I just try to play it well. But I've heard performers bring out the most obscure part of the fugue, some notes that are almost there just to give it a little harmonic support. Bringing out those notes, to me, doesn't make all that much sense, but, you can try things for sure. Anyway, I digress. We go on with the right hand. It's the subject in G. Wonderful. Right. And then this is an episode also, and it kind of uses now just a part of the subject in C, then in F, and then in I don't know what. You'd think maybe it was going to go to B flat, but we've been in the key of G, and we've modulated back to the key of C. And we have the fugue subject again. And this was one of the hardest parts to remember. Now, I haven't talked about this yet in learning a fugue, but I've said memorize the notes, memorize the fingering, but you should memorize the rhythm too. And a good way to do that, of course, is to count 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 1E and a, should have said 4E and a. But that was a particularly hard part to just, if you've learned it and you're playing through it fairly quickly to get that right. So 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a 1. And those 2 notes I like making staccato too. Though, legato would work. All right, and so that was like the fugue subject, like mangled and twisted around, He starts with the subject, and then back up here, and then jump down here, and it sounds like it's gonna, go but he doesn't. It jumped up here. So anyway, love that part of the fugue. Now here's another episode, and the left hand is playing a bunch of fugue subjects, and the right hand has got a 2-part counterpoint. And, the fingering is crazy. So you've got to do 1 and 4 here. Doesn't say to do it, but you got to. And then you cross your 3 over your 4. Again, use your 4, cross 3 over it. And as you're learning and memorizing a piece, you divide it into sections. And this is an obvious little section. You do this, 10 times in a row. And then we end up here. And this is actually the fugue subject that gets passed from the right hand to the left hand. Like that. So the left hand continues it. So you bring it out here, and then realizing that the left hand will probably pick that up. And if you've already learned the left hand, and now you realize that, oh yeah, I need to really play that subject loud there, because usually you bring out the subjects. That's usually the thing to, the most important thing to bring out in a fugue. But not always. Listen to Wilhelm Kempf play, and sometimes he brings out the subject, and sometimes he doesn't. Same with everybody else. Andre Schiff, if you listen to G minor Book 1 fugue, there's places where the inner voicings come in with fugue subjects, and you don't even notice them. But then you listen to Richter play, and bang, there they are. So. All right, we had wandering passages like that for the left hand. Now the right hand's doing it. Crazy Train. I know so many of my students, they just see a fingering like this, 2, 1, 3. I mean, they'll make up fingerings like this on their own when it doesn't help them any. But here, you want to do it. 1, 3, 5. And how does this work? It says 3. No, that's 2. All right. My eyesight. It says 2 here, so how are you going to do that? Just keep your thumb right there on G, and then you can cross over. And that's why you need a pencil. You got to write in that little 1 there, And one thing you can do is write in all the fingering. I've seen pretty professional concert pianists that go through a piece like this and write in just about every finger number. 5, 4, 3, yeah. So 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. And when you have repeated notes like this, a little staccato is probably good. But this thing of just doing every 8th note staccato, it works on some pieces pretty well. Now we have the fugue in F. Bach does this a lot, He'll run through a pretty standard set of keys. Suppose we're in the key of C. You're going to have the fugue in the subject in the key of C. You're going to hear it in the key of G. You're going to hear it in A minor, all the really related keys. You're going to hear it maybe in D minor. But close to the end, I find this even in classical music too. This is Baroque music, but in classical music too, that once you go to the 4 chord, you're getting to a kind of a reverential spot that's going to be close to the end. You're starting to hear the amen of this piece. So here we have a fugue subject in F. It's usually one of the most beautiful spots of a fugue or of any piece of classical music, is when you get to that 4 chord that's kind of close to the end. I'll give you a perfect example. When Mozart comes back in with his recapitulation, he does it in the key of F. And it's still a ways off from the ending, but it just gives you that kind of feeling of, it's a reverential feeling of beauty. That's the best way I can put it. But anyway, fugue subject in F. And then you just got to jump to your 5 there, because you got to, like this, and do a little bit of the fugue subject in C. And then the left hand will take over that subject. And the right hand follows in behind, like this, and at the same time, while the C is being held. Anyway, we're real close to the end here. Now, if you're going to do staccato, you can do whatever fingering you want there, but if you want to do it legato, and this is a part I'm still having trouble with, because that switch is real quick. 5, 4, back to 5 to 3 there, so you can do that. And what I usually do on spots like this, and you probably don't have to do it as many times as I do, because I'm 64 and a half years old, but I have to do it like about 20 times in a row. Let's see. Just a short section like that I'm having trouble with. And then come back the next day and do it at 25 times, and come back the next day and do it about 30 times, and then hopefully, if I've had a good night's sleep, I've got it. And I just did it right there, but it didn't feel right. You've got to get it to the point where it just flows out of your fingers, and you're not like clenching your jaw or worrying about it. So. Practice at the speed of no mistakes. That's great advice. I wish I did that. Yes, that's right. You could do 1 and 4, 1 and 5, 1 and 4, 1 and 5. You could do stuff like Bach played like this all the time, because back in the old days they didn't even use their thumbs, so they were always going, stuff like this, and it's a common technique in Bach's music. So like that, and you just drag your thumb along and try to connect, but don't worry about it too much, because by playing it slightly detached, it helps the listener hear the two different parts. If you're not a hotshot classical person, you're going to find this difficult. C5, and then here, and then back out to that. Now, you see me moving my fingers really in an exaggerated way. That's good to learn it, If the piece is marked, triple piano there, and you want to learn it, play it triple forte. Because that's how your fingers learn it. Now, you know what I'm doing here. 2 different voices, going to bring out the top one. And there it is. You got a good fugue when you can play just one hand of it. It sounds great. So anyway, I guess I'll at some point do a little performance of this piece, and I hope you'll enjoy it. All right, folks, thank you. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any comments, questions, please leave them down in the comment section. I try to respond to as many as I can. I do see all the comments. So thank you very much.